Motors has a big surprise!
Cleanup hitter at bat. Catcher signals for Kelly's fastball.
It's got real pineapple!
Some food ideas looked genius on paper, but turned out to be complete disasters. Why did these bold creations flop so hard? And which ones became legendary failures in the culinary world? Let's dive into 50 innovative foods that failed miserably. Of all the meatless meals ever attempted, McDonald's Hula Burger might be the most misguided.
McDonald's Golden Grill! It's got real pineapple! Hey, hey!
Ray Kroc cooked it up as a Lent-friendly option for Catholic customers who skipped meat on Fridays. The plan? Swap out beef for a grilled pineapple slice topped with cheese on a plain bun. Tropical? Maybe. Tasty? Not quite. Customers overwhelmingly preferred the Filet-O-Fish, created by a devout Catholic franchisee who knew what his audience actually wanted, something that didn't taste like dessert gone wrong. The Hula Burger vanished almost instantly, proving you can't force fruit into fast food just because it's Lent. Before the Big Mac became a fast food icon, the Big Barney was already flipping double-deckers with special sauce and swagger.
We have fresh ideas at Red Barn.
I'm having a fish fillet just for the hell of it.
Born around 1961 under the red roof of Ohio-based Red Barn, the Big Barney had all the right ingredients: twin beef patties, American cheese, shredded lettuce, and a triple bun, stacked with ambition. It beat McDonald's to the punch by 5 years, but what it didn't beat was the brutal reality of franchise costs. Red Barn's barn-shaped restaurants were charming but expensive to maintain. As cookie-cutter fast food architecture took over, the brand couldn't keep up. By the 80s, the Big Barney became the Farm Boy under a new name and dwindling locations. The final Red Barn shut down in 2020, taking Big Barney with it. But what happens when a burger chain dares to go bunless and beefless? The 1960s were obsessed with casseroles, and hamburger pie was a top-tier example of the trend. Budget-friendly, one dish, and perfect for busy families, it took everything Americans loved about a cheeseburger and mashed it into a pie dish. You'd layer seasoned ground beef, canned soup, sometimes mashed potatoes, and bake the whole thing like it was Grandma's secret weapon. And for a while, it was beloved. But over time, the novelty wore off. People realized you could just eat a burger, or a real pie. Hamburger pie ended up as a relic of a time when convenience ruled and flavor came second. Still, casseroles weren't done with us yet, not even close. Back in the early 60s, Hardee's wasn't selling curly fries and fried chicken. It was the house that the Husky built. This thick, charbroiled burger was Hardee's pride and joy. Home of the Husky signs hung proudly outside locations across the South and Midwest. With its smoky flavor and hefty size, it helped catapult the chain into the national spotlight. For decades, it was the go-to burger, until bigger, flashier burgers crowded it out in the late 80s and early 90s. The Husky quietly slipped off the menu, leaving longtime fans scratching their heads and clinging to memories of simpler, grill-kissed times. With a name that sounds like a tongue twister, Slumgullion Stew was the ultimate clean-out-the-fridge meal. It wasn't born in a chef's kitchen. It came from necessity. Toss together ground beef, macaroni, canned corn, kidney beans, tomatoes, and anything else that hadn't expired, and you had yourself a dinner. No rules, no measurements, just whatever worked. By the 1960s, as suburban living exploded and grocery bills tightened, Slumgullion became a staple for families juggling budgets and hungry mouths. It wasn't pretty, but it was surprisingly tasty, like chili meets hamburger helper. It also had a sense of community baked in. Every household had its own version. Slumgullion was less of a recipe and more of a survival tactic in a saucepan. You read that right. Beef, fudge. In 1967, the Poll at Hostess Cookbook offered up this fever dream courtesy of one brave, or possibly vengeful, Mrs. Florence E. Weist. Imagine a tray of rich, glossy chocolate fudge. Now add bits of ground beef or pot roast. Supposedly, the idea was to balance sweet and savory. In reality, it was a dense, confusing mess. The texture clashed, the flavor confused the senses, and the concept haunted dessert tables for decades. Even the most daring retro recipe lovers steer clear. Some foods fail quietly. Beef fudge failed loudly with a meaty thud. And just when you think dessert couldn't get more disturbing, here comes dinner with a syrupy surprise. This wasn't your grandma's rice casserole. It was something far more sinister. Straight out of Miss Fluffy's rice cookbook, deviled rice looked like a science experiment gone rogue. The ingredients: cooked rice, green peppers, onions, sour cream, Worcestershire sauce, mustard, pimentos, and currant jelly. The result? A swampy, gelatinous mash that resembled a 1960s movie monster more than dinner. Retro food ghoul described it as relationship ending. And they weren't wrong. It wasn't healthy, it wasn't tasty, and it definitely wasn't deviled in any redeemable way. There's retro, and then there's regret. In the 1960s, Good Housekeeping proudly showcased mayo-infused gelatin salads that somehow passed as food. These weren't your average Jell-O molds. Inside the trembling dome were shrimp, macaroni, cauliflower, and parsley, all suspended in sweetened gelatin. And if that wasn't stomach-turning enough, mayonnaise was added not just as a binder, but as a decorative topping. The result looked like a jellyfish had exploded at a salad bar. Hellmann's was the main culprit, pushing these creations through ad-driven recipes. Other brands jumped in too, spawning even worse versions like the notorious Kling-a-Ling salad. Somewhere between art project and chemical spill, these salads were meant to impress. Unfortunately, they often did, just for the wrong reasons. They've since earned a permanent spot in the museum of just because you can doesn't mean you should. Some dishes just scream, "We ran out of groceries." Hot dog casserole was one such budget-friendly brainchild. A staple in the 1960s, it combined sliced hot dogs with elbow macaroni, gooey cheddar cheese, and often canned vegetables, all tossed together and baked until it became one melted, meaty mound. It was frugal, filling, and just strange enough to catch on. Families loved it for its versatility and price, especially in areas where fresh ingredients weren't easy to come by. But despite its practicality, the dish walked a fine line between comfort food and culinary chaos. For many, it was a hot dog's final form, not grilled, not on a bun, but entombed in pasta and cheese. If you've ever wondered what a backyard barbecue and a school lunch tray would taste like combined, this was it. Before they were immortalized in pop culture, Beanie Weenies were just a quick fix for time-starved parents. This 1960s concoction combined baked beans, sliced hot dogs, and sometimes ground beef into one protein-packed plate. It was fast, easy, and kid-approved, which made it perfect for school mornings or last-minute dinners. The canned versions exploded in popularity thanks to companies like Van Camp's and Hormel, and soon, Beanie Weenies were everywhere, from military mess halls to family camping trips. They weren't gourmet, but they were dependable, shelf-stable, and oddly satisfying. The name may have sounded like a cartoon character, but the dish was serious about convenience. If you grew up in post-war America, there's a good chance this was in your lunchbox, or haunting your memories. Either way, Beanie Weenies earned their spot as a weirdly enduring comfort food. Even today, you'll find it in diners across America, quietly clinging to its long legacy. Cabbage rolls may have arrived on American shores as a hearty old-world import, but by the 1960s they were a fixture of U.S. dinner tables, especially in immigrant communities. Each roll was a small, leafy package of meat, rice, or buckwheat, and the occasional surprise like mushrooms or dried fruit. Boiled or baked, they served as a frugal filling dish during wartime and the lean years that followed. But for many kids growing up in mid-century suburbs, they were a mealtime horror, soggy greens wrapped around mystery meat. Cabbage rolls had the unfortunate fate of looking too healthy and tasting too bland, unless doused in sauce or heavily spiced. Still, for the families that loved them, they were comfort food with cultural pride. For everyone else, they were the thing you tried to trade away in your lunchbox. Pimento cheese sandwiches were the South's answer to both comfort and convenience. Creamy, sharp cheddar mixed with diced red pimentos became the heart of a spread that graced white bread across generations. Some added garlic, cayenne, or jalapenos. Others spiked it with Worcestershire sauce for depth. No matter how it was made, it was affordable, filling, and unforgettable. This cheesy concoction popped up at school lunches, family reunions, and Southern picnics alike. In the 1960s, when simple prep-free meals were prized, the pimento cheese sandwich hit all the marks. You didn't need fancy ingredients, just some pantry staples and a fridge. Grocery stores carried tubs of the stuff, but many still swore by their grandma's homemade version. It wasn't flashy, but it had soul, and in the South, that's what mattered. In the early 1980s, AIDS Diet candy was marketed as a popular appetite suppressant, promising rapid weight loss through a candy-like formula. Initially successful due to its novelty and taste, the product's reputation took a devastating hit during the AIDS epidemic when the name AIDS became tragically associated with the disease. Despite the product being unrelated, the unfortunate name similarity caused a sharp decline in sales and public perception.
And you'd rather look as slim as this. Try the AIDS Reducing Plan. Delicious tasting AIDS candy contains vitamins and minerals.
Attempts to rebrand failed, and it eventually vanished from the market. The AIDS story is a rare example of a product's downfall driven largely by external societal factors rather than product quality or marketing strategy. AIDS Diet. Candy promised weight loss, but could Sizzlian's fake bacon satisfy breakfast cravings or disappoint? In 1983, Dr. Pepper gum aimed to capitalize on the soda's popularity by offering a chewing gum flavored like the iconic soft drink. The novelty of soda-flavored gum generated initial curiosity, targeting consumers who loved Dr. Pepper's unique taste. However, the gum failed to deliver an authentic soda flavor and left an artificial aftertaste that many found unpleasant. Its limited flavor longevity and lack of satisfying texture.
And the lady that when I checked out said they can't get this stuff on the shelves. People were buying it right and left. So I bought it just because I do remember.
Further dampened enthusiasm. Moreover, soda-flavored gum was a niche concept that didn't resonate broadly with gum buyers. As a result, Dr. Pepper gum disappeared quickly from store shelves, becoming a quirky footnote in the era's attempts to blend beverages with confectionery. Dr. Pepper gum brought soda to your mouth, but were Fruit Wrinkles fruit leather snacks a tasty treat or a miss? Launched in 1982 by Royal Crown, RC Cola, like Cola, was an ambitious attempt to tap into the growing health-conscious market by offering a low-caffeine alternative to regular sodas. Marketed with the tagline, "Made from the cola nut, not from chemicals," it positioned itself as a natural, better-for-you cola option. Packaged in distinctive red and black cans, like Cola contained only 1/3 the caffeine of traditional colas.
Here's Like Cola, the caffeine-free cola from 7-Up, the company famous for making great-tasting soft drinks with no caffeine.
Targeting those who wanted the cola flavor without the jitters. However, it quickly became clear that the market wasn't asking for less caffeine. It wanted better taste. The flavor was often described as weak or flat, and with little consumer demand, Like Cola quietly disappeared from shelves, becoming just another forgotten experiment of the early 1980s soda wars. In 1984, Crystal Light attempted to expand from powdered drink mixes into ready-to-drink soft beverages. The goal was to capture health-conscious consumers seeking low-calorie, flavored soda alternatives. However, Crystal Light soft drinks failed due to a combination of artificial taste, lackluster carbonation, and poor marketing.
Industry that's related to this, the soft drink or the soda industry, if the product can reasonably be associated.
Consumers expected a refreshing soda experience, but instead found a bland, diet-flavored drink that didn't satisfy cravings. The brand's strong association with powdered mixes also created confusion about the product's identity. Facing stiff competition from established diet soda brands, Crystal Light soft drinks were pulled from shelves within a few years. The failure highlighted challenges in brand extension and meeting consumer expectations in the competitive beverage industry. Chef Boyardee launched the spaghetti dinner in 1986, targeting convenience-seeking families with a ready-to-eat canned pasta meal. This product aimed to deliver classic Italian flavors in a quick and affordable package. However, the spaghetti dinner faced criticism for its overly mushy noodles, bland sauce, and artificial taste. Consumers often found the texture unappealing, and the flavor lacked the authenticity expected from Italian cuisine.
I discovered a way to perk up simple meatloaf. Chef Boyardee's spaghetti dinner is a side dish. It has everything you need, and because you make it fresh...
Additionally, the canned nature raised questions about freshness and quality. Despite strong brand recognition, the product failed to sustain sales amid rising competition from frozen and fresh pasta alternatives. By the early 1990s, Chef Boyardee phased out the spaghetti dinner, highlighting the risks of compromising quality for convenience. Introduced in 1987, High C Ecto Cooler was a vibrant green citrus drink themed around the popular Ghostbusters franchise. Aimed at kids, it combined branding with a tangy, sweet flavor intended to stand out on shelves. The product enjoyed initial success due to the movie's popularity, but struggled once the Ghostbusters craze waned. Some consumers found the flavor overly artificial.
It was coming out of the Ghostbusters Afterlife New York City premiere. They had people lighting these bottles up with their cell phone lights. I'm assuming High C, Coca-Cola, they asked people to do.
And the neon green color was off-putting to certain buyers. Additionally, changes in consumer preferences toward healthier beverages reduced its appeal. Although discontinued in the early 2000s, Ecto Cooler remains a nostalgic favorite for many, illustrating how tie-in marketing can drive but also limit product longevity. Introduced in 1980 by Royal Crown, RC100 was one of the first caffeine-free colas aimed at a growing market of health-conscious consumers. At a time when caffeine content in soft drinks was beginning to draw scrutiny, RC100 hoped to offer the classic cola experience without the stimulant. It was packaged to resemble RC Cola, but featured prominent 100% caffeine-free branding. Unfortunately, while innovative in concept, the execution fell flat, literally. Many consumers found its flavor dull.
Will you be in high spirits? Will you still love to travel the world? RC Cola, American taste since 1905.
Lacking the boldness of its caffeinated counterparts. It also struggled to compete with Coke and Pepsi's own caffeine-free versions released soon after. With little fanfare and poor sales, RC100 quickly vanished from store shelves and from memory, leaving behind little more than a trivia footnote. In an effort to ride the frozen beverage trend, Minute Maid launched its Orange Slush in 1985, a semi-frozen, slushy-style drink meant to deliver the classic orange flavor in a fun, new texture. Sold primarily through vending machines and convenience stores, it was positioned as a refreshing alternative to sodas or juice boxes. However, the slush machines often malfunctioned, leaving a watery mess or rock-solid ice, frustrating both vendors and customers. The inconsistent texture and overly sweet taste didn't help either.
Orangeade slushie from McDonald's, the very last of their series that they have. Again, $2 for this big guy.
Despite the recognizable brand and initial curiosity, the product failed to gain traction. By the late 80s, Minute Maid quietly discontinued the Orange Slush, marking it as another short-lived experiment that melted under its own promise. In 1984, Spam and Pineapple combo packs attempted to blend savory canned meat with tropical sweetness, capitalizing on Hawaiian-inspired flavors gaining popularity in the U.S. The combo pack included pre-sliced Spam alongside canned pineapple chunks for quick meal preparation. However, many consumers found the pairing unappetizing and unnatural, with the sweetness overpowering the salty, processed meat. The canned packaging gave little room for freshness, and the combo's novelty wore off quickly.
And I'll be eating at all sorts of restaurants, the expensive, the not so expensive, and those spots where you can get a real bargain meal. And I'll be checking out breakfast places.
Additionally, Spam's existing reputation as a low-quality meat product made it difficult to reposition successfully. By the late 1980s, these combo packs vanished from most markets, serving as an example of a flavor fusion that failed to resonate widely. Spam and pineapple paired for a tropical twist. Was Watergate salad a retro favorite or a questionable dessert? The 1982 launch of lime jello and cottage cheese dessert aimed to blend tangy gelatin with creamy cottage cheese, offering a supposedly refreshing and protein-packed treat. This concoction was marketed to health-conscious consumers looking for lighter dessert options. However, the unusual combination of sweet, tart lime gelatin with the mild, lumpy texture of cottage cheese proved off-putting to many. The contrasting flavors and textures confused palates, making the dessert unappetizing. Furthermore, its artificial lime taste and artificial sweeteners detracted from any sense of freshness. The product's short shelf life and lack of consumer enthusiasm led to its rapid disappearance from store shelves. It is now remembered as a mismatched flavor experiment, typical of early 80s innovation. Aspic molds featuring meat, vegetables, or seafood suspended in savory gelatin enjoyed a fleeting resurgence in the 1980s as a trendy party centerpiece. The visually impressive, often colorful molds promised elegance and convenience. However, many guests found the texture unpleasant, slimy and rubbery.
Jellied meat is served cold. It goes well with hot side dishes, especially mashed potatoes.
And the flavor combinations awkward or artificial. Additionally, aspics required precise preparation and refrigeration, limiting their practicality. As culinary tastes shifted to fresher, lighter fare, aspic molds became synonymous with outdated and kitschy food presentations. Despite their innovative attempt to impress with artistry and novelty, aspic molds failed to maintain popularity beyond the decade, serving as a cautionary tale about style over substance in food trends. The 1984 launch of Nut Loaf targeted the growing vegetarian market by offering a meatless alternative to traditional meatloaf made primarily from nuts, grains, and legumes. Positioned as a healthy, protein-rich entree, Nut Loaf attempted to appeal to both vegetarians and those seeking healthier diets. However, its dense, dry texture and heavy nutty flavor failed to satisfy consumers expecting a familiar meatloaf experience. Many found it bland and difficult to prepare appealingly.
The room is filling with the aroma of lemon. We've got the chestnuts in there, the cranberries, the mixed nuts, flavors of thyme and rosemary and nutmeg. This is
lacking the savory richness of its meaty counterpart. Additionally, limited distribution and marketing meant Nut Loaf struggled to reach a wider audience. Though innovative for its time, the product's failure illustrated early challenges in mainstreaming vegetarian convenience foods. Launched in 1988, Frodo Dinner Mix Salads attempted to blend packaged salad ingredients with pre-cooked dinner items, aiming to offer quick, complete meals in a single container. The product included salad greens, dressings, and protein bits like chicken or tuna. Despite the convenience appeal, Frodo salads suffered from inconsistent ingredient quality. Wilted greens, soggy proteins, and watery dressings were common complaints.
Pepper, or you can leave them out if you like, or change them into seasonings of your choice. So here's a little salt and pepper.
Consumers also found the flavor combinations odd and the texture unbalanced. Packaging design was bulky, limiting shelf life and storage ease. As fresh salad bars and meal kits gained popularity, Frodo mixes quickly lost favor. Their failure emphasized how innovation in ready meals must prioritize freshness and taste alongside convenience. In 1968, Jell-O went wild, literally. The brand introduced a trio of wild flavors, hoping to jazz up gelatin with bold, fruit-forward punch.
Any time, any season, for any rhyme or any reason. It's the dreamy with creamy, soft to chew, good for you, brightful, delightful, jiggly, wiggly.
Wild Cherry Jell-O was the standout. tangier than its regular cherry cousin, with a sweet-sour zing that promised something different at every wobbly bite. It was the kind of Jell-O you'd expect to see at a groovy dinner party, next to fondue pots and avocado green decor, but it didn't stick around. Despite its flavorful twist, Wild Cherry couldn't hold its ground in the Jell-O lineup. Fans today are told to make do with Black Cherry, but that version brings a heavier, darker note, less wild, more funeral punch. Whether it was too niche, too tart, or just a victim of changing palates, Wild Cherry Jell-O faded out quietly. Long before fast food chains battled over chicken sandwiches, Burger King took a weird gamble with hot ham and cheese. Enter the Yumbo, a 1968 offering that wrapped lean ham and melted American cheese inside a warm, soft roll.
Just like when it debuted in 1968, the Yumbo is still a hot ham and American cheese sandwich, only this time it has lettuce and mayo. And instead of a round bun, it's on a long bun.
It came in a clamshell-style foam container that kept it toasty, long before McDonald's tried anything similar with the McDLT. The Yumbo wasn't flashy, but it gained a quiet following among those who wanted a break from burgers. Still, it didn't mesh with Burger King's growing grill-first identity. By 1970, it was quietly cut from the menu. A short-lived 2014 comeback tried to modernize it with lettuce and mayo on a hoagie roll, but fans of the original weren't impressed. You can't reheat nostalgia. After watching the Filet-O-Fish dominate the Catholic Friday market, Burger King threw its own net into the seafood game. The Whaler debuted in the late 60s with a crispy fish patty, a splash of tartar sauce, and shredded lettuce all nestled in a sesame seed bun.
With creamy tartar sauce, the Whaler, so big, so tempting, so... The Whaler doesn't get swallowed up by the bun.
It was a respectable sandwich, if a little forgettable. Unlike its flame-grilled siblings, the Whaler never got much love in the spotlight. Maybe it was the bland name, or maybe it just lacked the flavor punch customers expected from the King. While it had brief comebacks under new names, nothing stuck. Eventually, the Whaler got swallowed by the tide of limited-time offers and seasonal menu rotations. It never quite found its sea legs. Cheap, cheerful, and controversial, this casserole was Depression-era logic baked into a 60s dish. You'd take elbow macaroni, throw in ground beef, or sausage if you were feeling wild, and mix it with canned tomatoes. Sprinkle on cheese, bake, and serve. It was endlessly modifiable and surprisingly loved, unless you hated the texture, or tomatoes, or both. For some, it was comfort food. For others, it was a tomato-sogged nightmare. But in a world where meals had to stretch, this one earned its keep, for a while. Then came the casseroles with better balance, less acidity, and no risk of tomato backlash. Also known, less affectionately, as SOS.
But to give you a quick idea, it cost me $5.13 to make this meal for four, so that's...
Chipped beef on toast was a Depression-era invention that clung on stubbornly into the 1960s. It was made by soaking thin strips of dried beef in a creamy white sauce, then ladling it over toast. The flavor? Salty. The texture? Soggy. But in tough times, it was better than going hungry. Military mess halls adopted it as a cheap and easy breakfast. The dried beef came from unwanted cuts, tough and stringy unless slow-cooked into submission. Paired with stale bread, it was far from elegant. But it was warm, filling, and dependable. For many veterans and working-class families, it was part of daily life. Before frozen waffles and toaster strudels ruled breakfast, there were potato pancakes, crispy, starchy, and born from frugality. Deeply rooted in Jewish cuisine, they were especially popular during Hanukkah but found broader American appeal during the Great Depression and post-war recovery. Why? Potatoes were cheap, filling, and available everywhere. Grated, seasoned, and fried until golden, these pancakes could stretch a meal or serve as a meatless main. By the 1960s, they had crossed over from cultural staple to general comfort food, embraced by diners and home kitchens alike. You'd find them topped with sour cream, applesauce, or even leftover gravy. While they never vanished, they've become overshadowed by flashier breakfast trends. On the flip side, the next dish was a total disaster. It was 1966, and Caro syrup wanted more than a place in your pecan pie. In a bold ad in Ladies' Home Journal, they proposed a main course: pasta in a sauce made with bacon, and a full cup of corn syrup. But wait, it gets better. The recipe called for whole hot dogs lined up on top like edible fence posts. Dubbed the Wineroni Casserole, it was sticky, salty, and weirdly sweet. It may have looked orderly on the outside, but inside? Chaos. The bacon helped, but not enough to justify the sugary sludge it floated in. Some dishes are bad because of poor execution. This one was doomed from the concept. In the 60s, goulash was the hero of tired parents and hungry kids, known by many names: American chop suey, slumgullion, or just that pasta mess with beef. It was quick, filling, and didn't ask much of you. Elbow macaroni, ground beef, diced tomatoes, and maybe some onions or bell peppers. It was the kind of dish you made in one pot, dumped on plates, and still had leftovers. But somewhere along the way, it got repetitive. Too much tomato, too little spice, and a rubbery noodle problem no amount of paprika could fix. It slowly slid off dinner tables, replaced by frozen lasagna and box meals with snappier branding. Still, for one shining moment, American goulash fed a generation that just needed dinner done fast. If you've ever had a meringue pie, you probably expected lemon or maybe a creamy coconut. What you didn't expect was fish. In one of the most puzzling experiments of the 1960s, savory pies stuffed with white fish were crowned with fluffy meringue and baked like dessert. Some versions added bacon, tomato, egg, or cheese to mask the aquatic origins, but the meringue always gave it away. A newspaper recipe even pitched it as a balanced breakfast pie. Balanced, maybe, but only if your idea of balance is sweet egg foam clashing with salty seafood. The texture alone was enough to send forks flying. Fish meringue pies were supposed to be elegant. What they ended up being was unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. Chili mac rose out of necessity and frugality and somehow became beloved by millions. During the mid-20th century, families were looking for meals that were cheap, filling, and adaptable. Enter chili mac, an effortless fusion of two pantry staples: elbow macaroni and chili. The macaroni provided bulk, the chili brought bold flavor, and together they created a dish that satisfied without draining wallets. It became a regular on dinner tables, especially in working-class homes. Ground beef, beans, tomato sauce, and spices were all cheap to come by, and macaroni stretched it further. It wasn't fancy, but it didn't need to be. Chili mac could feed a family of 5 with leftovers to spare. Though it's no longer a trend, it still lingers in lunchrooms, potlucks, and nostalgic cravings, because nothing says American ingenuity like comfort food in a single pot. A wartime hero turned peacetime staple, corned beef hash was a pantry MVP throughout the 20th century. With its roots in Irish cuisine, the dish gained massive traction in the U.S. during the Great Depression and World War II when rationing made canned goods essential. Corned beef, potatoes, and onions were all cheap, filling, and easy to cook in bulk, perfect for feeding large families on a tight budget. By the 1960s, brands like Hormel and Libby's made sure you could buy hash by the can, heat it up in minutes, and call it dinner. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest food. Mashed into patties or spooned straight from the skillet, it carried a salty, savory punch that got the job done. Jambalaya wasn't just dinner, it was heritage in a pot. A fusion of Creole and Cajun traditions, the dish blended French, Spanish, and African influences and simmered its way into 1960s Southern kitchens. Born in Louisiana, it became a one-pot favorite across the country, especially where rice was abundant and dinner had to feed many. Jambalaya typically includes sausage, chicken, or shrimp. paired with tomatoes, peppers, onions, and long-grain rice. It was spicy, hearty, and deeply tied to family recipes passed down through generations. The brilliance was in its flexibility. You could stretch it for a crowd or turn it gourmet. As Southern food spread, jambalaya tagged along, proving that food born from struggle and diversity could become a staple. It may have started as regional fare, but by the 60s, this rice-based powerhouse had claimed its seat at the national table. Pickle roll-ups may sound quirky today, but in the post-war cocktail era, they were party royalty. This bite-sized snack featured dill pickles wrapped in cream cheese and deli meat, often corned beef or ham. Rolled, sliced, and served cold, they were salty, tangy, and dangerously easy to pop by the dozen. In the 1960s, potlucks and cocktail parties were booming, and hostesses needed finger foods that required minimal prep but packed bold flavor. Pickle roll-ups fit that bill perfectly. They became a staple of social gatherings, both casual and classy, and often competed for top honors on snack trays alongside deviled eggs and stuffed olives. Their appearance may have been divisive, but their flavor wasn't. With crunchy pickles and creamy centers, they won over guests one bite at a time. Love them or not, they were hard to forget, and harder to stop eating. Sizzlian gained popularity in the early 1980s as a breakfast meat marketed as a healthier alternative to traditional bacon. Created by Swift, it was a blend of pork and beef.
Oh, there's something meatier. Delicious sizzling. Fake bacon? Mom's sizzling is real meat.
Designed to cook faster and produce less grease, appealing to health-conscious consumers of the era. For a brief time, Sizzlian found success among those looking to cut fat without giving up bacon entirely. However, its processed texture and lack of authentic smoky flavor soon drew criticism. Many found it failed to replicate the satisfying crunch and taste of real bacon. As trends shifted and healthier options improved, sales declined. By the late 1980s, Sizzlian was discontinued, remembered as a short-lived hit that couldn't hold its sizzle. Introduced in 1984, Fruit Wrinkles aimed to offer a healthier alternative to traditional fruit snacks by delivering dried fruit pieces coated with sugar. Marketed towards children and parents seeking a convenient snack, Fruit Wrinkles promised natural fruit flavor with added sweetness. However, the product's overly sugary coating negated its health appeal, confusing consumers. The texture was often too tough and chewy, making it unappealing to many kids.
They put lots of real fruit and fun in Fruit Roll-Ups and Fruit Wrinkles, so I don't mind sharing.
Additionally, competition from more flavorful and visually appealing fruit snacks overshadowed Fruit Wrinkles. Despite initial curiosity, the product struggled to maintain shelf space and consumer loyalty. By the late 80s, Fruit Wrinkles quietly disappeared, remembered as a failed attempt to blend convenience with health-conscious snacking. McDonald's introduced the McDELT in 1985, a burger designed with a unique packaging concept. Hot ingredients on one side and cold ingredients on the other, separated by a foam container to maintain optimal temperatures. The McDLT promised a fresh eating experience with crispy lettuce and cool tomato intact until the last bite. While innovative, the foam packaging was environmentally unfriendly, attracting criticism during growing ecological awareness.
What do I give the McDonald's McDLT? It's fresh. I love the cheese aspect being cold, right on top of a hot burger pan.
Additionally, the awkward packaging was inconvenient and bulky for customers on the go. The concept faded by the early 1990s as McDonald's shifted to more sustainable packaging and simpler burger designs. Despite its short life, the McDLT remains a nostalgic reminder of 80s fast food creativity. McDLT kept hot and cold apart. Could Crystal Light soft drinks lighten drink choices or fall flat? In an ambitious attempt to modernize its iconic formula, Coca-Cola introduced New Coke with a sweeter, smoother taste. Marketed as a bold evolution of the original, it quickly became one of the most infamous product missteps in history. Consumers across the U.S. reacted with outrage, organizing protests, hoarding the original version.
We're bringing back the classic original formula as Coca-Cola Classic.
The return of Coca-Cola Classic showed the company had learned an important marketing lesson.
And flooding the company with complaints. The backlash was so intense that within just 79 days, Coca-Cola was forced to bring back the original formula under the name Coca-Cola Classic. New Coke lingered on shelves for a few years under the name Coke 2, but the damage was done. The debacle became a textbook example of how not to tamper with a beloved brand. Pudding Pops debuted in 1982 as a frozen dessert blending creamy pudding and icy popsicles, aiming to offer a richer alternative to traditional ice pops. Marketed by Jell-O, the product targeted children and adults seeking indulgent yet refreshing treats. Despite an initially successful launch and endorsement by celebrities like Bill Cosby, Pudding Pops failed due to their high sugar content and inconsistent texture. The pops often melted too quickly.
You know that this is made with real pudding. New, rich, creamy-tasting Jell-O brand Pudding Pops. All the goodness of real Jell-O pudding frozen on a stick. Taste.
And lacked the crispness consumers expected from frozen treats. Additionally, competition from other frozen desserts like ice cream and sorbet overshadowed Pudding Pops. Production ceased in the late 1980s, with the product remembered as a tasty but ultimately impractical innovation. Oreo Big Stuff, introduced in 1986, was a giant-sized version of the classic Oreo cookie, aimed at snackers craving a larger treat. The cookie featured oversized chocolate wafers and extra creamy filling, promising indulgence and shareability. Despite its bold concept, Big Stuff failed because the large size made the cookie difficult and messy to eat. Many consumers found the texture overly dense and the sweetness overwhelming in such a large portion.
看飞机！哎呦，别走啦！
扭一扭，舔一舔，泡一泡。
It was also expensive compared to standard Oreos, deterring repeat purchases. Production ceased by the late 1980s, though the cookie retains a cult following among 80s nostalgia fans. Big Stuff's failure underlines how bigger isn't always better in snack foods. Banquet introduced boil-and-bag meals in 1985, aiming to offer ultra-convenient, ready-to-eat dinners that could be heated directly in boiling water. This innovation targeted busy families seeking quick meal solutions without the mess of traditional cooking or microwaving. However, the meals suffered from uneven heating and soggy textures, with many consumers complaining about the plastic bags altering flavor. The packaging, while novel, was bulky and inconvenient to dispose of. Additionally, the meals lacked freshness and variety compared to emerging frozen dinner options.
Your own meals using your own ingredients, cottage pies, lasagnas, chili con carnes, anything like that where you can...
Despite aggressive marketing, Banquet's boil-and-bag concept failed to catch on widely, disappearing by the late 1980s. It remains a forgotten experiment in convenience food packaging innovation. Cheese Whiz-topped hot dogs, launched in 1986, were intended to add creamy, cheesy indulgence to a classic American snack. The product featured pre-sliced hot dogs topped with a generous layer of processed Cheese Whiz, targeting consumers wanting easy, flavorful meals. However, many found the combination overly greasy and artificial tasting, as the processed cheese clashed with the hot dog's texture and flavor. The product was also high in fat and calories, deterring health-conscious buyers.
Fusion dogs, and they got the best ones on deck. A few of the heavy hitters are the Angry Dog with a spicy pork bulgogi and spicy aioli, jalapenos, delicious.
Packaging did not keep the cheese fresh, leading to spoilage complaints. Ultimately, Cheese Whiz-topped hot dogs failed to gain traction and disappeared from supermarket shelves by the late 1980s, remembered as a misguided culinary mashup. Watergate salad became a curious culinary trend in the 1980s, combining pistachio pudding, canned pineapple, whipped topping, and marshmallows. Touted as an easy, sweet, and creamy dessert, its neon green color and mix of textures made it both eye-catching and polarizing. While it gained popularity at potlucks and family gatherings for its convenience and playful appearance,
fight to see who can get to it first. Notice I buried that cherry in there because I want to bite of it.
Many found its overly sweet, artificial flavor cloying. As the decade progressed and tastes began shifting toward fresher, less processed foods, Watergate salad lost its appeal. Today, it stands as a quirky relic of 1980s food culture, more nostalgic than appetizing. In 1985, the gelatin turkey loaf attempted to reinvent meat dishes by suspending cooked turkey pieces in savory gelatin molds. Designed as a cold, easy-to-serve entree for parties and buffets, it fit the era's fascination with gelatin-based foods. Despite this, the dish was widely criticized for its unappetizing appearance and off-putting texture. The gelatin coating dulled the natural flavor of the turkey, creating a rubbery mouthfeel that many found unpleasant.
Tamarind, and then it's aged for a few months before it's strained in bottles, and that's why it has such punch.
Yeah, you get a lot of bang for your buck.
Yep.
We'll let this reduce down for a minute just to concentrate those yummy flavors.
The concept also evoked associations with outdated aspic dishes, which had largely fallen out of favor. As tastes moved toward fresher, hotter meals, gelatin meat loaves disappeared from mainstream dining, becoming a symbol of 80s culinary excess gone wrong. Gelatin turkey loaf combined meat and dessert. Did aspic molds continue the trend or turn appetites away? In 1986, Vol-au-Vent frozen kits promised a gourmet, ready-made pastry experience at home, allowing consumers to bake delicate puff pastry shells filled with savory ingredients. Marketed to busy cooks wanting elegant appetizers without the fuss, these kits initially attracted attention. However, the frozen pastry is often baked unevenly, resulting in soggy or undercooked textures. The fillings lacked freshness and depth.
And it kind of went okay, a bit sideways, and these are the best one. That's the one with the hat. I kind of preferred actually that technique. Some of the casing in the back have gone a bit sideways as well,
leaning heavily on processed ingredients that diminished the upscale appeal. Moreover, preparation instructions were sometimes confusing, causing inconsistent results. Competition from freshly baked or frozen finger foods with more reliable quality pushed Vol-au-Vent kits off the shelves by the late 80s. Despite its sophisticated concept, the product failed to deliver a satisfying gourmet experience at convenience. In one of the most bizarre product misfires of the 1980s, tobacco giant R.J. Reynolds attempted to diversify by introducing a candy designed to look and feel like a cigarette. This smokeless, nicotine-free candy stick was meant for adults trying to quit smoking, but its resemblance to actual cigarettes raised immediate alarm. Critics slammed it for potentially glamorizing smoking to children.
Arrows can be used in any no-smoking area, anytime, anywhere you want, without restriction.
While adult consumers found it awkward, unappealing, and downright confusing. Health advocates, parents, and politicians condemned the idea as tone-deaf and dangerous, sparking swift backlash. Amid mounting pressure and negative publicity, the product was quickly pulled from shelves. It remains a cautionary tale of how brand image and social awareness can make or break innovation.